Money talk.
Here comes the money.
The Hobby Capper's in the house. What's going on, brother?
What's up, Dash? How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Not too bad. Just another day in paradise.
Dude, well, I mean, it's paradise when you got a man cave like you have. Jesus, that thing's beautiful. We got the signed Kobe jersey in the background. We got your logo spread throughout. That thing's pretty badass, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's just about 70% done. Just moved into the new house about a few months ago, so office was the first priority.
I would have to imagine that the signed Kobe jersey is your prized possession. How and where did you find that thing?
I found this at a random shop probably 9 to 10 years ago for around $600. Definitely my prized possession, Kobe mentality. Kind of something I take with me on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, that's front and center on the wall over here, and probably number 2 is my John Elway stuff to my right. So it's either Kobe or John Elway for me.
All right. Well, at some point or another, I'm gonna have to pay you a visit in that man cave and watch a game with a hobby capper. So
I mean, we got 4 extra bedrooms here. We should throw a Dub Club Super Bowl party or something down here.
Hell yeah, that sounds awesome. Well, hey, let's dive into kind of your story and how the hobby capper came to be, because it's a super unique name. It catches everybody's eye, and I imagine there's a great story to go along with it.
Yeah, I mean, so jumped on Twitter in 2020. So as we all know, that's right around the COVID jump. The hobby, so for those that don't know, is kind of that brand or that phrase around card collectors.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole community is called the hobby, and I myself have a pretty significant card collection. It's kind of my second passion outside of sports betting. So I originally made this account as the hobby because cards boomed during the COVID, sealed wax boomed during COVID. So I made this account as an extra stream to buy, sell, and trade cards. And then I just happened to be scrolling Twitter, being new to Twitter, and seeing all these Russian table tennis bets and all the random stuff that we all remember back in COVID. And I was like, why not? I'll jump in on some of this action. And then I actually was pretty good at it. I know I was already betting sports on the side, but I never thought about giving these bets to other people like I am now. So now I changed the brand name to the Hobby Capper. So I'm kind of doing both. My social media platforms are kind of shot away from cards now. I'm more towards sports betting, but I still keep my collection, still very active in some Discords and on eBay. But yeah, so it's sports betting first, and card collecting is a very close second.
I love that. Well, we talked about the Kobe jersey. Any trading cards that stand out to you?
I got one on my front desk here. Yeah, this is probably my number 1 if you guys can see it. Little Kobe auto here in the front. Got a bunch of Vlad Guerreros, but I got about 35 signed John Elway cards over here to my right. More of a John Elway collector as far as cards go, because Kobe's now are so hard to get your hands on some good ones.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I've asked you enough about your sports memorabilia. Let's get back to handicapping. We just had week 0 this past weekend. Football is coming on quickly with the NFL right around the corner. You are one of the bigger NFL handicapper names in the industry. I mean, you profited significantly in 2020, 2021, 2022, as long as you've been doing this, with 54 units in NCAA football in 2020. NFL was 46, etc. I don't need to read off all those numbers but I will say your 2022 college football season was pretty absurd, going 177 units of profit. So tell me a little bit about when you found like this niche in betting in general, and then more specifically in football, because you've absolutely torn it up over the years.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been betting on sports for about 15 years. But it took a good 5 to 6 years first starting out through some shaky times, losing money, to kind of figure some things out. I did everything everyone tells you not to do. So I kind of had to learn the hard way. I didn't have Twitter. I didn't have other people to kind of like, oh, hey, what should I do here? It was just reading random Google articles, and obviously betting on my favorite teams that weren't in the right positions. And just over the years, just kind of picked up some trends. I turned into someone that likes looking at lines, finding where the money's going, and limiting my outside resources and articles and different things to maybe 3 or 5 trusted sources, and kind of just keeping the blinders on. That's the one thing nowadays that a lot of people struggle with is there's so much analytics, there's so much just data and information out there that people really can get tripped up and stop trusting their gut and trusting their original approach because they always can see it. They always see the other side because there's 100 million other people betting against the side that you're thinking about. So just kind of formulated that. I use Action Network a lot. Just watching lines and watching where money goes for the most part.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, these days, obviously, there are a bunch of different types of bettors. There are model-based bettors. There are reverse line movement bettors. There are trend bettors. There are even gut feel bettors. It sounds like you kind of move closer towards like just taking a deep look at how lines are moving and potentially fall into that like reverse line movement and money percentage type handicapper. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely reverse line movement and public perception plays a big key with a lot of this movement, especially in college sports. And when it comes to the ranked teams, there's just a bunch of little trends that you'll pick up over the years, and you'll see it throughout college football. You'll have I talk about this on TikTok. You'll have the unranked home favorite against the ranked opponent. Public's going to be all over the ranked opponent on the road, and you'll see the splits be the same way, and that home unranked favorite comes out through more times than not. So it is picking up a little bit of those trends, but for the most part, I'm seeing where the line's open and see how the line progresses, and then countering that with the public perception and obviously injuries and all those other small things.
Yeah, let's talk about sports other than just football because not only are you incredibly profitable in football, you're profitable across all major sports. Is there a sport in particular that you have found to create the most value and the most profit possibility?
Most value, my favorite sport to bet is college football for one. Most value, I think, would be college hoops.
Yeah.
Just because on any given Saturday there are 175 games, and that you can. I mean, and the more games, it's known. The more games, the less edge Vegas has, even though they're always going to have the edge over us. And it's finding those matchups on a Saturday with a slate from 12 to 12 to pick through the lines and pick apart that slate. So I think college hoops holds the most value on a Saturday. Baseball, you can find your edges, but it's a grind. It was not fun this summer as it was the last four. But I think college hoops and then probably college football's next, and NFL is so sharp. So definitely sometimes can be a crapshoot there.
For young bettors that are just kind of getting their start, how do they go about narrowing in on individual games come November and December when you got, 200 college basketball games going on a Saturday, you got hundreds of college football games going? How do you narrow in on specific spots when you're looking at a board with 400 plus games on it?
So I think for one, and this is something I did starting out, and I even still do it. If we're talking college sports, stick within Power Fives. So I mean, we're not playing Robert Morris versus LaRoche or some nonsense schools that. I mean, the games can go either way. You don't know much. There's not a lot of research out there for them. Stick within the Big Ten. Just stick within the big Power Five conferences when it comes to just looking at your matchups and start there. Weed out everything else. Stay within those matchups, and then just start to digress through that. Do you know certain leagues better than other ones? ACC. That's where I play ball. That's where I follow most of my sports. ACC is up my road. So those are I'm usually in the ACC the most. And then behind that, the Big Ten. So find things like I mentioned earlier. There's too much out there right now to read into. You really have to put the blinders on and just focus in and not worry about, am I betting every single sport? Am I betting every single matchup? Bet within just the ACC. You can bet just within the ACC for all of college football and all of hoops. And I actually know people that do it just because that's what they know. Stick to what you know is probably the best advice I can give a young bettor. And limit your resources. Find a couple of resources that you trust and stay consistent. Because the moment you're not consistent, then how do you ever pinpoint back my success was because of this or my failures are because of this? So staying consistent and kind of just really narrowing in. And once you have a real grasp, you can start to venture out, widen your scope. But even for me, I'm only betting 4 sports. I've been doing this for 15 years. I don't touch NHL. I don't touch NBA. I stay within the 4 sports I know, and that's fine by me. I got volume all year round, money coming in all year round. I don't need to branch out at this point.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. Obviously, like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, there's so many tools and resources that are popping up right and left. And if you jump out of a certain routine, you have no idea how to trace back the success that you were having. If every day you're reading a new article or betting a different style. So that's incredibly, incredibly interesting. I
Yeah,
Go ahead. Sorry.
and like I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm perfect. Literally, what I just said, I kind of honestly went against that a little bit this past Saturday in Week 0 of college football. Got a little bit of football happy and talked myself out of a couple bets. One being Jacksonville State. I went opposite after I wanted to read up more. I don't know much about Jacksonville State and their opponent, but I read up a little bit more and up flipping sides. Same thing happened with the New Mexico UMass game. So I kind of sometimes I catch myself like crap. You're doing what you shouldn't be doing, and it happens to all of us. So I'm not perfect. It cost me significant units on Saturday just doing an extra hour of research, and I talked myself out of my original position. So it's just sometimes it's just narrowing in like, okay, trust in my gut. I'm not looking at anything else. Let's place the bets and roll.
Yeah, it almost sounds like paralysis by analysis. You do too
Yeah.
much analysis, and you end up talking yourself out of good spots. So you've been handicapping for 15 years. You've been a very strong presence on Twitter now for 3+ years. How much have you seen the industry change already over the course of these last 15 years, and kind of where do you see it going?
So I mean, 4 years ago when I started, this wasn't the thing what you and I are doing right now. There
Yeah.
were at least from what I remember, there were very few podcasts I mean, even in the podcasts that were happening, weren't really talking about sports. I mean, hell, ESPN just recently started talking about sports betting a year ago. Um, so I mean, it's definitely changed to more entertainment value, and that's, in my opinion, could be a whole other podcast, and it could be good and bad for what I think the entertainment side of gambling has caused social media and different things. But as far as 5 years from now, I mean, it's literally going to be podcasts, TikTok, videos, kind of basically where it is right now. It's a bunch of people coming together, creating content that happens to be around sports betting, and that's kind of where I struggle with the direction that it's going right now. Because for one, I can be an entertainer, I can create content, but to me, all that matters is the win and loss. Whereas now you're seeing a big transition to be, if you can create good content, you will gain business, you will gain sponsors, and the winning and losing is secondary. And I think everyone that would potentially listen to this can see that, and if they are honest with themselves, that is definitely where gambling on social media is going, and it already is there. It's content created. It's less of the win and loss, which is good and bad for the subscriber.
Another big change in the industry that we've seen is this shift away from playing sides and totals and money lines and towards player props specifically. Where do you stand in terms of what the bet type that you play most consistently, and what are your thoughts on this shift?
No, I mean that's a great bridge in the conversation. The same game parlays and props are something that I just recently dove into, not publicly, so not going out to my groups or on my platforms, just because I think anything that I put out, people would have a chance to tail it, and I wouldn't want to lead someone the wrong way. But it's definitely something in my repertoire that I'm going to have to add at some point. Nowadays you're seeing this first pitch result if you follow
Yeah.
baseball betting. So like there's all these new tangents to betting now that I have to like pick up on. I'm a money line, spread, totals better, and not so much props. I don't really dive into statistics, and fantasy football is not my thing, and different things like that. So by this time next year, if I don't have something like that, or side prize picks kind of entry and stuff like that, I'm not. There's nothing I'm not going to keep up, but I'm not going to have another side to where gambling's going.
Yeah. It's been a very interesting shift, and I hear kind of differing perspectives on where to find value, and even amongst different leagues. Like you mentioned earlier how sharp the NFL is. It brings in the most handle of any sport, and therefore the lines are the sharpest. And so people lean towards player props to find more value in that specifically. But you hear different perspectives in stuff like college basketball, where these are 18-year-olds. You don't really know what you're going to get out of them, and so you're kind of throwing darts at a dartboard with player props. But there could be more of an edge on sides and totals. So, everything that you've done, you've had success in. So I imagine this time next year, like you mentioned, you will be in the player prop space where you see fit and profiting doing so.
Yeah, that would definitely be nice. Just, I mean, because more money, the better for one, but two, it's just nice to always evolve too. I mean, I've been doing these same four sports for literally 15 years. Haven't really, and the only reason I don't go into other sports is because I really don't have much interest in hockey or NBA or anything like that. But player props within my four sports is definitely my next step to kind of capitalize on that and hopefully turn into some profitable systems.
Absolutely, I don't doubt it at all. You are an absolute force in the industry, and it's very much appreciated you took some time today. Really excited to get this out to our listeners, and I really appreciate your time, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Des. You guys are great.
All right, brother. Have a great one.
See you, buddy.